Hi, I'm Sarah Ruppel, and I am the digital content producer here at Ritter Insurance Marketing. My typical day consists of a lot of different tasks, and I kind of like it that way because I get to mix up a lot of different things that I do. I can write, I can record, I'm producing things. Now I have the added element of being a leader on top of that, so there's also a lot more meetings. There's a lot more thinking about processes, time frames, and just kind of how all of those things interact. And it's just a different level than when you're only kind of concerned about yourself and what you're required to do and what your output is supposed to be. One thing that I do like about how Ritter is structured and just how the company works, development and growth is kind of thought about and was thought about as processes and things were put into place. It's almost a forethought as opposed to other companies where it's kind of an afterthought. So there's always a path for development or growth here. That path is going to look different depending on what department you're in and what you might be doing. In all honesty, I think I asked to take on more responsibility, and I knew I needed more help. I wanted to grow the podcast, and it was just kind of like similar to what I did with the podcast. Obviously, that was a formal process with like a proposal and all of that. But, you know, what do you guys think about, can we bring someone on to help? And are you cool with the idea of me being their leader as opposed to the structure of things that we have going on right now? When I initially researched the company and I was looking through LinkedIn, doing all the appropriate social media stalking, I noticed that a lot of the people who worked here had held different positions. And then when I actually came on board, I kind of saw how the department was growing, things were being built out, but then I also saw how when people were coming into certain departments and certain roles, if they were a good fit for that particular department or role, you could see there were ways for them to move up, and then sometimes there are ways for them to move across to other departments. One of the ways and things that I had always thought about from, I think, my first year here was how could we really build out not just an audio team, but a full multimedia team? What would that look like? What would we need to have in order for that to come about? And how could we really get to a point where we would be able to do all the fun projects that I kind of had in my head that I wanted to do? And really that came from, you know, creating the podcast, having the video strategy on one side, and then also just continuing to bring more and more people in to be able to help with those projects, because it takes a lot more than one or two people to really get things done at scale. I think that one of the first things that I noticed when I first saw Ritter, the Facebook page, there was definitely a vibe that the culture here had that was very different than what I had seen anywhere else. There was an energy here and it looked like people had a lot of fun. Now, of course, after the past couple of years, we had some real challenges of, you know, dealing with how do you foster that spirit of togetherness over Teams calls, Zoom calls, all of those sorts of things. I think that we have done our best to intentionally try to foster that spirit of family, and I think that is probably, it sounds so simple, but I think it's one of the biggest things that a company can do, is that if you are actively trying to be engaged with your employees, you're trying to get them engaged with what you're doing, that is going to come across. The heart of those people is going to come across. And I think that's really just the biggest thing, is that you have to just be intentional about it. And I think that's always been the case here. I think really probably one of the most recent cool experiences that I've had is being at the summits and finally getting to meet a lot of our agents who actually listen to the podcast, just getting to have conversations with them, because In marketing, we typically don't get that, face-to-face or over-the-phone interaction. It was really neat to have those conversations and see what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with, and how we can come in and help. I would say to younger Sarah that you don't know everything and you cannot do everything by yourself, because I think when you're trying to start out processes and start out doing really new, exciting things, you have this idea that you want to hold it all very close. And it's hard to sometimes realize that you need to give some of that stuff away. Growing and learning and developing is hugely important. There should always be a thirst for that, because if you're getting to the point where you do think that you know everything, usually you've hit a wall in your learning or your growth opportunities. So to just keep that thirst for knowledge alive. I think the most interesting way the podcast has grown that I did not expect was that initially we had this concept of just knowledge, here are the episodes, this is how it's going to go. We have developed so many series over time. We are talking about all of the different aspects of Medicare, the different products, sales strategies, business strategies. We have blog adaptations that we're working into podcast episodes. We have people coming on doing interviews that we're then turning around and turning those into blog posts. We have an agent app series. We have the Friday 5, which is quite honestly probably my pet project. That's kind of one of those things that I have always been sort of like a read the news type geek. So my whole concept with that was, and it was actually born out of COVID, was take the news that is relevant to our industry and package that so it's just here, this is what went on this week that you should know about that maybe you didn't have the time to learn about. It's basically let me sift through the news so that you don't have to. There's that. We've done a social media series. We've done so many different kind of tangents on our just regular content that it's been really exciting to see how it's grown. And there's a lot more that we have coming in the next year. We started doing a lot more video, and it's just really neat to see how it's gone from being something that was so simple initially to now, even if you go back, maybe don't go back and listen to the first couple episodes, but I can hear a difference in just how far I've come voice-wise since we began. The level of what we're putting out, how much we're able to put it out. Without Tina, that wouldn't have been possible to expand the Agent App series and actually put that out on a bi-weekly basis. It's really been an interesting journey of growing it and exciting to see where it'll go in the future. For me, I think the biggest thing is I want to see how far we can grow this thing. I think one of the things that I really love about where I work and I think makes our place of work stand out compared to others in the industry is the transparency that our leadership has with us, and also just the integrity that they come to the day-to-day with. There is a level of kindness and care that they show in everything that they do, all of their interactions with us. Again, there's a lot about this that it sounds super simple. It sounds like, oh, that's the way that things should be. But if you've ever been somewhere where things don't work like that, or you're not really sure what's going on, you really appreciate the way that business is led here, because I can tell you that in the way that they lead, I have trust in what they do and what they say because of the fact that they are so transparent, but also so generous in how they deal with all of us and just what they choose to do, how they choose to prioritize what gets time and money and effort thrown at it. We talk about company culture and all of that. There's a lot of people that won't throw money at that because they just don't see it as necessary. And no, you don't have to do it, but it creates an environment where people are genuinely happy to be here, and I can tell you that people are genuinely happy to be here.
Do you remember what your word was last
Yes.
time?
Empowered.
Do you still feel that way?
Empowered times two. I think that that has always been very important to me. I thrive on feedback and hearing that even if I'm not quite going the right direction, what direction should I be going in? I think there is so much opportunity here, and there is so much put back on our own shoulders that we are given the opportunity to prove ourselves and prove what we can do, that I don't know what other word to use to describe that other than empowered again.